Jefferson County 911.
Yes, I am a teacher at Columbine High School. There is a student here with a gun.
It was an ordinary spring day in Colorado.
I'm in the library. I've got students down under the table, kids. Heads under the table.
A shooting at Columbine High School, and a new era of gun violence in Colorado and America.
You live for 47 years going through life in a certain way, and then you lose a child. Everything is then marked by that day.
Smoke is coming in from out there, and I'm a little afraid. The gun is right outside the library door, okay? I don't think I'm going to go out there, okay? You're at Columbine High School. I
got 7 down in feet or not. 7 down.
July 20th, 2012. Another mass shooting in Colorado. This time at a movie theater.
Weekend 25, everybody on this suspect is going to be a male, unknown race, black camo, outside outfit.
I tried to get down on the floor, and then about 5 minutes later, I remember just being frozen and then waking up in the hospital.
Mass shootings, drive-by shootings, accidental shootings, all too common.
We're talking about over 80,000 people every year in this country who were injured by bullets.
This is where the bullet is, and this is why you're not gonna be able to walk anymore. And I just remember, like, laying on my bed and not even knowing what to think, you know?
What happens to those who survive?
Those medical bills just kept coming in for many, many, many years after my injury. And then the ongoing, all your life cost that is associated to living with a spinal cord injury.
What does it take physically, financially, and emotionally to heal the wounds?
I often wonder if those people who survive, will they have permanent neurologic injuries that will not allow them to be as mobile as they were before?
How do they move forward? Tom Mauser has spent the past 20 years walking in his son Daniel's shoes.
These are the shoes he was wearing that day on April 20th, and I wear them proudly. I only wear them when I'm speaking on this issue because I want to preserve them as much as I can for the future. And when I think 20 years of my life is a long time, and yet it's not that it seemed like yesterday, but it's hard to believe that it's 20 years. My wife and I speak in those terms very often, before and after Columbine. That's a defining moment in our lives.
15-year-old Daniel was one of 13 people killed at Columbine High School.
There's 2,000 students going to Columbine. What are the chances that he was somehow involved in something bad going on?
Tom was supposed to leave town that day to attend a conference when he saw the news reports.
One officer, they're patting down, or they're checking to make sure that none of these has the potential to be a suspect, to make sure that none of these people is involved in the incident, that they are not carrying any type of a weapon.
It was really my coworkers that convinced me to forget about the conference for now. You need to go home and find out what's going on.
But here's more and more students coming out again.
Tom and his wife went to Columbine looking for Daniel, but they couldn't find him.
Missy Holman, Stephanie Les Bledsack.
You go into the room, there's some other parents, and they have counselors there. You're thinking nothing good can happen at that point.
The Mausers waited.
We went to bed that night not knowing where he was, if he was alive. It wasn't until about noon the next day that the police came to our house and informed us that he was one of the victims.
In that instant, the Mausers went from having a high school sophomore to grieving parents.
How do you find happiness? How do you move forward? How do you also grieve? How do you try to honor your child and keep your family together? Society, unfortunately, tends to try to, put a lid on it. And, well, isn't it great the way the Columbine community came together? And then I know there's a whole lot of others that were impacted in other ways, even though they weren't shot. And that was the trauma, the PTSD, people who are still living with that today.
And while the Columbine Victims Fund paid for many costs, the emotional cost of losing a child was monumental.
Really, the biggest cost for us was just the peace of mind that we had. I don't think people realize the strain that you go through. With all the media attention that there was on Columbine, the strain that puts on you, being in the public eye.
Every part of his life has changed.
When you have something happen like this, there's strain with your friendships. We lost some friends. They simply didn't know how to deal with this. Just about 2 weeks before the tragedy at Columbine, Daniel at the dinner table asked me a question. Did you know there were loopholes in the Brady Bill? The Brady Bill was the national law that requires that a background check be conducted before making a purchase. 2 weeks later, he was killed with a gun that was purchased through a loophole in the Brady Bill. How could I not act on that?
I give to you Tom Mauser.
Tom took a sabbatical and went to work for an organization lobbying the Colorado State Legislature. The goal, to close the loophole in background checks when guns are bought and sold.
Reasonable people are understanding that this effort is simply about keeping guns out of the hands of kids and criminals. Reasonable people understand that law-abiding citizens who pass a background check will still be able to buy their guns.
Voters overwhelmingly approved the issue, voting it into law in 2000.
And I want you to work with me to fulfill Daniel's wish.
Tom's activism has helped his healing, but it hasn't come easy.
When you get involved in an issue like this, the hate mail, the harassment, the nastiness, it's not been good. I know, I haven't liked that part of it.
For Tom, it is the only way.
During those days when I was advocating as today, I wore these shoes. These are the shoes my son wore that he was wearing on April 20th, 1999.
It was doing things in Daniel's name. For me, healing was really a combination of things. Trying to keep a sense of humor in my life and trying to be upbeat, It was family, honoring him, having his website, talking to young people. Those things played a really important role.
Tom will forever mourn Daniel as one of the lives lost that day. But there were 2 survivors, 2 students shot and paralyzed.
What's the quality of life for some of those people, especially if they become severely paralyzed? Their lives are changed. And when you think of the trauma that causes and the cost of that, it's greatly, greatly overlooked.
Stefan Moton was like so many kids. He loved to play basketball and football with his friends, and he spent his free time going to parties and to movies.
Me and my brother were talking about the movie, talking about going to see Batman, because we love superhero movies and stuff like that. So we were waiting to see Batman, and then yeah, we just went to the movies that night, and then all that happened.
911, where's your emergency?
July 20th, 2012.
I can't hear you. What address?
Yes, we got rifles, gas masks. He's detained right now. I've got an open door going into the theater.
I was hit with one bullet in the collarbone, and then it didn't exit my body, but it hit me in the spinal cord.
All right, so the guy's still in theater 9. I'm working on the backboard right now for that female.
12 people died at the Aurora movie theater.
318, I'll find another victim on the north side of the theater in the parking lot. I'm being told that he's in theater 9. Theater 16, I need a rescue in here. Hot, we got a guy shot.
2, including Stefan Moton, were left paralyzed.
I was 18 years old. It was almost my 19th birthday.
For Stefan, going from a young, active kid to a person confined to a wheelchair for the rest of his life was a hard concept to grasp.
What's up, bro? What's going on?
Not much.
I'm grilling some chicken, some veggies.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You don't know what's going on. You don't know how you're gonna live life. You're not prepared for those type of things. So mentally, it's just kind of hard.
Stefan spent a month in the hospital before being transferred to Craig Rehabilitation Hospital for 3 months.
They teach you how to live after your injury, how to cope with it, physically, mentally, emotionally, and it's just a good place to be if you get injured with a spinal cord or any kind of injury like that, because they have a lot of resources, a lot of good people that help you and try to teach you.
I got it right this time.
I know, got it perfect.
In the beginning, Stefan was completely immobile and couldn't talk. He lost all strength in his abdomen, chest, and vocal cords.
Yep.
Stefan's life has completely changed. He is almost completely dependent on his friends and family, which he says he's lucky to have.
I didn't want to go out, because I couldn't be able to talk to anybody. They couldn't hear me.
Just chicken and veggies. Yeah. We're trying to eat healthy.
Oh, damn. Physically, I didn't know, how the world would look at me. I didn't know, how they would accept, what I looked like from now, because I'm not used to being in a chair or, not being able to move at all.
Stefan is one of about 277,000 people in Colorado who live with a permanent disability. A disability that prevents him from moving from place to place on his own. CHANDA HINTON LEICHTLE is another.
His wife's not there, and so his son's taking a nap right now. So that's going to make it even more awkward.
Why?
Because they're a distraction.
She was injured when she was just 9 years old. She says it started like so many childhood games. This one over a popsicle.
We were like brother and sister during this period of life and time, and so for us, running to the freezer and going for a popsicle and fighting about what color and what we were gonna have was all natural, good, and fun. One of the boys was sitting across from me and the other one was coming out of the hallway, and he said, oh, you know, Chanda took one of our red popsicles. Let's just shoot her that we don't have to worry about it. And it was a joking thing. That little tiny action that shouldn't result in what occurred, but my choice of actually standing up and walking over and getting a red popsicle is really the catalyst that resulted in why I am in a wheelchair today.
As Chanda ate the popsicle, her friend Trevor jokingly pointed a gun at her that still had a bullet left in the chamber. The gun fired, and the bullet lodged in Chanda's spinal cord, paralyzing her instantly.
He picked me up and he laid me down on the couch. I remember asking them to call my mom and to call 911, and they were scared at first. They were like, no, they didn't want to call anyone because they were worried about, you know, getting into trouble. And I think that as young boys, it was a natural reaction because I don't think that they really knew the magnitude of what was truly occurring in front of them.
Chanda knew immediately that something was wrong.
I was having an internal debate with myself about whether I was actually going to live or die. You know, I can only imagine what it looked like because my entire body just completely went limp. I felt a lot of tightness in my throat, which the tightness in my throat was because my neck had fallen backwards. I couldn't feel the bar stool that I was sitting on. So it's like when you completely lost all of that connection to gravity and ground and everything, you don't know what's really going on.
Nearly 30 years later, Chanda sits in a wheelchair, a quadriplegic, forced to deal with the new reality at just 9 years old. A very different childhood than expected, and a lifetime of expenses.
When I was little, my parents were told to actually quit their jobs and go on to public assistance and welfare because the cost of me living with my injury was very expensive.
You're requiring a lot of medical care. There's often a lot of pharmaceutical management that needs to happen, which is very expensive. And then
Candy TEFERTILLER is the director of physical therapy at Craig Hospital and a board member at the CHANDA Plan Foundation. Craig is a nationally recognized rehabilitation hospital in Denver, specializing in spinal cord and traumatic brain injuries.
if somebody loses the ability to walk, they then require a wheelchair to be able to mobilize. And sometimes that's a power wheelchair, which can cost upwards of $30,000 in terms of being able to use the bathroom every day and being able to shower every day. There's bathroom and shower equipment that's needed. Sometimes that can cost upward between $5,000 to $10,000.
About 5% of patients seen at Craig Hospital are gun-related. Many of the costs associated with long-term care of those patients are often overlooked.
My wheelchair is around $20,000. My van is around $120,000. The modifications to my house has been around $35,000 for the person that comes in and helps me literally dress, bathe, go to the bathroom, all those kinds of things. She alone, that's $4,000 a month.
There are lifts for people to get in and out of their chairs, in and out of bed. There are pressure injuries from sitting most of the time, surgeries, and there is the mental toll.
The emotional cost, those are just as impactful though as the financial cost. And it's really helping people understand who they are and getting back into their communities in the same types of roles that they had before.
As I age with my disability, there's always going to be moments where, you know, because this doesn't go away, there's still emotions that come with it and the difficulties that I have. All of this will continue for the rest of my life. Like, none of these pieces of healing will ever go away.
To see, well, we have to see if somebody's there, I'm not sure.
for those who survived gun violence and have injuries, tremendous impact on them. And one of them is just simply that you have people who have the attitude, well, aren't you glad that you survived and that you weren't killed? And I don't think those people realize all that those people have to go through. Some of the things they have to go through just to lead a daily life.
I was born in Mexico, and my parents migrated here to the United States when I was 11 months. And we basically moved over here to this house when I was in 2nd grade. So this has been where I've basically known all the good and bad memories. I was going to school like a regular day, and I went through all my classes, and I got out early that day.
Shots fired from a car, putting schools on lockdown, and a 17-year-old girl in the hospital. It happened this afternoon just across the street from Aurora Central High School.
KARINA SARTIAGUIN ran home to get her new puppy to bring back to school to show her friends. When she returned, she was caught in gang-related crossfire.
I heard 2 pops. Pop, pop. And I ran in the house and I told the wife, get down, get down, get down.
Shot in a drive-by outside Aurora Central High School. That was December 6th, 2010.
All I remember hearing is just the gunshot, and I blacked out. And when I woke up, I was already on the ground. My ears were ringing. I looked down and I saw that my legs were laying flat on the ground, but they felt like they were sticking straight up in the air.
The bullet lodged and remains behind her stomach, and KARINA will never walk again.
When I woke up, I was already in intensive care with neck braces. I had a chest brace, oxygen tubes. I had a whole bunch of things just sticking out of my body.
Because KARINA was an undocumented immigrant, she did not have insurance, nor was she eligible for government assistance. For her, the mounting cost of a drive-by shooting will never be resolved.
The thing is, I haven't paid for anything. It's just piling up. And that's the worst part, is I've literally come to the realization in my own mind that I'm not even going to try, because I didn't cause this on myself. It's really hard to get your mind around something that you have to pay for something that somebody else caused on you. You know, it's really hard.
KARINA spent a month and a half at Craig Hospital. She says her rehab was helpful, but wishes it could have been longer.
I struggle a lot with my healing process just because you're constantly living with the effects of what changed your life.
A 2017 study at Johns Hopkins University revealed that people admitted to the hospital with gun-related injuries face about $100,000 in medical bills. And this does not include the costs of ongoing long-term care after patients are released from the hospital.
When I was first injured, the protocol was, here's your wheelchair, get in your wheelchair, and here's all the medications that you need to take. And that was just the process of how you live with a spinal cord injury. When I was 21, I got extremely ill. I was having a lot of chronic pain. I went to my physician. They put me on narcotics, which was the next worst thing.
CHANDA had dropped to 59 pounds and was bedridden. She was put in the hospital with a feeding tube. She sustained on pain medication and had very little quality of life. It was at that lowest low that CHANDA's family members stepped in, deciding it was time to take a new approach. The idea came from CHANDA's sister, Crystal.
My sister, who was a yoga instructor, really drove this conversation with myself and my mom and my physician. And, you know, he just said, well, we have nothing to lose, so let's try it. I started doing acupuncture and massage and chiropractic and physical therapy and all these really critical things.
Though you will be very relaxed, you will remain attentive and aware of my voice as well as your surroundings.
CHANDA is also beginning to use virtual reality. VR applications for medical use are still experimental, but for CHANDA, the trial is the tool that helps her body with stress and pain management.
It's beautiful to know how amazing the physical body is. But it's also really sad to know what occurs with it when it's paralyzed. And when it's paralyzed, it needs external support in order to be very healthy.
So I can just right away show how tight the flexors get from always being in a 90-degree position. And so feel, CHANDA, how your hips want to lift off the table. Feel it go down through your knees and then go all the way to your feet. Let the muscle relax and drop wide.
CHANDA started seeing results. She was gaining weight and was able to wean off of some of her medications. She thought maybe Medicaid could help pay for some of the treatments that were keeping her healthier and out of the hospital.
I called Medicaid and I said to them, can you fund these integrative therapies? Because these integrative therapies are cost effective to me and my secondary conditions of my spinal cord injury. So I'm not only using Medicaid dollars to go to the emergency room and do all of these things that cost a lot of money, I'm actually taking care of my body to the point where I'm not utilizing those things.
And the prop right here at your shoulder, this block, feel how that holds the shoulder back, and then when I just traction, and then you let it stretch wider.
I am not having to call 911 to go to the emergency room to understand why the pain is so severe or having ongoing urinary tract infections. It's like you can have this laundry list of cost and expense associated to not having the tools that you need for your spinal cord injury.
Equal and opposite, so you're reaching with your left arm and your right foot towards me. Was that? I think I would just support it. Yeah.
CHANDA, determined to help others, started a nonprofit and eventually the CHANDA Center for Health, helping those who are permanently disabled find new pathways to mental and physical strength. In 2009, she led the movement in Colorado for a House bill pilot program offering Medicaid waivers for alternative treatments.
Individuals with disabilities include spinal cord, MS, CP, spina bifida, and brain injury, and it allows them to get access to things such as acupuncture, massage, chiropractic, adaptive exercise, yoga.
CHANDA, she helped me a lot with sponsoring me with getting adaptive exercise, with getting acupuncture, massage. It was something that I always thought that it was so far to reach, and when she came into my life, I realized there's so many more options.
You know, I've got neuropathy and all the other stuff that goes along with it, and I kind of use that as a tool to help me sense my body, I guess. It's a feedback, it's another feedback.
It's like this finger.
Yeah, and it just goes on. Yeah, that gets better.
Think it's better?
I think it's better. Yeah, that gets better.
So let's just take a minute just to kind of get grounded. Let's close our eyes.
CHANDA Center currently serves about 200 disabled patients, helping those like KARINA and STEFAN get the care they need outside of traditional medicine.
How's your chest?
That feels good.
Okay.
A little tight, but
okay.
Not as much. But
okay.
Yeah.
How
We
abdomen?
can work on that.
1, 2, 3.
That was nice.
What was that?
The physical part, it helps my neck, like blood flow, and it helps my arms not for being so stiff. When it's colder outside, like, it helps my body feel a lot more loose, and like I don't get sick as much as often. Like, I haven't been sick in a long time.
Are you having any neuropathy in the left, or is it pretty much mostly on the right?
Stefan CORSALE is an acupuncturist who has been treating Chanda and Stefan since he was shot.
At the time I started working with him, he was in a pretty good place mentally, emotionally, but was still dealing with the trauma. So the other place you were saying just wasn't accepting the... Yeah. Some of the other things that Stefan was dealing with is, well, he still has very limited movement. He had absolutely no movement in his upper extremities, and he is now able to reposition his arms. So just right on the inside, I can show you once you get up, and you can see better. Yeah. So rather than trying to find the point, if anyone, you can just kind of work. I'll show you how to kind of massage in that area. Can be helpful for that.
Acupuncture uses small needles to help stimulate the nerves.
We use certain points on the body to help either manipulate organ function, pain, and so we do this in the traditional Asian concept. It's called Qi.
It was hard to put on sweaters, like my favorite hoodie, I couldn't put that on because my body was like real stiff. But I was just real depressed about, like, I couldn't wear certain clothes I wanted to wear.
The acupuncture seemed to help Stefan, and the range of motion in his upper body has improved.
My shoulders don't feel as tight. Like, I can wear, like, when I first started doing it, like a year later, I could start putting sweaters on and stuff like that. It's not as stiff. So yeah, it helps a lot.
The work currently being done at the CHANDA Center for Health is now part of a study looking at the long-term benefits of alternative treatments. CHANDA hopes to show that integrative treatments help decrease hospitalizations and the need for medication and long-term care.
When it's looser, you can still kind of use it the way it is.
Over time, without these therapies, someone who is paralyzed would start to lose movement. The hope is to keep Stefan's limbs from tightening and shortening.
Stefan has, over the years, dealt with a lot of tightness, congestion in his chest, which would affect his breathing. And so there's this feeling of a lot of heavy pressure, congestion, and that's something that Stefan almost always responds really well with a little acupuncture.
Candy TEFERTILLER says expanded treatments, along with improved technology over the past 20 years, have had a profound impact on rehabilitation at Craig Hospital and other similar facilities.
In the personal training opportunities, we have a wide variety of technologies. So we're really fortunate here to have an underwater treadmill system. So with that, the entire floor is a treadmill belt, and then the floor raises and lowers to any height with just a push of a button. So we use the buoyancy of the water to help an individual begin to move their extremities when even maybe they're very limited and have very little strength.
The hope, TEFERTILLER says, is that the changes and improvements will have long-term positive effects on patients. Eventually, that reduces hospital costs and improves lives. Technology improvements alone have had a drastic impact.
And I think that's honestly the most exciting situation that we currently have in rehabilitation is that, you know, there's been an explosion of rehab technology on the market in the last 10 to 15 years. And so it's much easier for me now as a physical therapist to provide more of these wellness approaches for somebody with a significant disability because I have technology that can support their weight and can allow me to get them up and moving and compensate for some of their limitations, but still allow them to be in a very functional and mobile environment in a much better way than I could 18 years ago.
One popular advancement in rehabilitation is the use of the exoskeleton, a very high-tech robotic machine that helps individuals who can't use their legs stand, and move their body.
We all feel better when we're exercising our bodies and when we're moving. And that's even more important, I think, after a catastrophic injury, because they just don't have the same opportunity on a daily basis to get just basic exercise of walking in.
Much like life, there's going to be distractions. The beauty of yoga is that it gives you that opportunity to reset, rejuvenate, refocus.
Adaptive technology and holistic wellness are now intersecting, improving long-term care and quality of life for people with paralysis.
When you're spending that much time every day in a manual or a power wheelchair, your muscles aren't getting stretched out to the point that they should, and you're not using them in the same way that you did prior to your injury.
Push down with your elbows to bring yourself back through center. Oh, wow, that's nice.
Adaptive yoga is really unique in that it allows patients to work on breathing and posture and positioning and really allow them to be free of that wheelchair for a little while.
TEFERTILLER says there are obvious physical benefits, but there is also a psychological impact.
When I initially started out as a PT, I was seeing individuals with spinal cord injury, and my focus was really about teaching them how to compensate for their injury, getting them in a wheelchair that was fit appropriately for them. But now we have a better focus, or a bigger focus, on bringing in more of a health and wellness and recovery-based approach as well.
For Stefan, like so many victims of gun violence, his healing is multifaceted. He says with acupuncture, massage, and exercise, he feels the benefits all over.
I do a lot of arm exercises, like I get on the floor and I get on like the vibrating plate for my shoulders. I ride the FES bike for my legs.
Yep, you can come a little more close. Perfect, right there is good. Thanks. You feel okay?
It just feels like things are connected. Things like are opening up. Doors are like opening up. It's hard to explain, it just feels good, like magical.
Those magical moments are what keeps Stefan going.
Just a lot of mental and spiritual and physical. It's all connected together, so you gotta put it all together and like keep going forward and just try to become a better person and be positive for people around you and for yourself too.
For Tom Mauser, walking in Daniel's shoes helps him move forward. It helps him heal and helps to keep Daniel's memory alive.
You can't let this burn inside of you, because it'll eat away at you. You have to say there's something better to reach for, that you are going to work to make sure that it doesn't happen to other people.
For Tom, forgiveness is part of a long, non-linear healing process.
I cannot forgive them for what they did. I have forgiven them for being two very lost and disturbed young people who didn't know a way out of what they were going through in their heads. I've forgiven them for that.
Tom hopes his activism will prevent other families from having to live through the same tragedy.
I don't think Daniel would want me to be so stuck in grief that I couldn't go on with my life. That's not what he would want. That's not what our kids and our loved ones would ever want. They want us to go on.
The physical toll of Karina's injuries make her mental healing and forgiveness a daily challenge. She says it's hard to move on when your body reminds you each day that you will never be the same.
Literally one day you go to school and you're going to school normal, and then the next day, the next Monday, you're trying to like sit up straight.
Karina has learned to drive. She has a job that she loves and is as self-sufficient as possible.
I started working at the History Colorado Center about 4 years ago, and I always like to tell people that that was my very first taxable job ever. I always thought that it was going to be really hard to try to find a job with a disability, but that building is super accessible. The people are really kind about, you know, when I don't have the accessibility of something, they will be there to help me with it.
The mental and physical challenges are intertwined and can be extremely overwhelming.
We had to get ramps, a roll-in shower. Even now, there's still a lot of things that are not accessible in my house that I have to constantly be living with that frustration of lack of independence. But, I mean, it's life.
She wheeled through downtown Denver streets alongside marchers demanding change in gun control legislation.
This whole movement that has started, I feel a part of it because I feel like I had been doing it for such a long time.
Like Tom Mauser, Karina's healing path involves activism. She can't change the impact of her injury, but she says she can use her voice to teach others. She is now a permanent resident working towards U.S. citizenship, which would then make her eligible for Medicaid.
My healing came from me speaking out and being an advocate to a lot of the things that affected me, whether it was healthcare, immigration, gun control. All those things, I feel like definitely helped me put myself out there and get my personal healing.
I just remember like getting shot, and I tried to call my brother's name, but I really couldn't get the words out because I think it just like paralyzed me instantly, stuff like that.
Could you tell the jury about what you remember about
Stefan did testify against his shooter, and he says he forgave his shooter's actions long ago.
At first when I got shot, I was mad, but when you're mad, you're not gonna progress, so what's the point of being mad at something that's not gonna help you out? Like, I forgave him, so there's no hate feelings, or I don't think about him, or I just move on with my life and try to be positive, or not just for myself, but for the people around me too, because you don't want to be toxic. You gotta try to move forward and be happy.
For Stefan, what is certain is that healing has come from within.
Healing is just a process in life. Healing means growing, like growth, like finding peace in life, self-peace, self-growth, self-love, like loving yourself, because loving yourself is a journey. It never stops. You just keep finding ways to love yourself.
One of the most heartwarming parts of my job is that when you see somebody who first comes in and they don't want to make eye contact with other people, they don't want to talk to anybody else who's in a wheelchair, they really don't want to be where they are, and so they really disengage from social interaction and social communication. That's one of the most impactful signs that they're coming out of this and that they're going to be okay, is when they start talking to other people who've had injuries and they start working through some of these problems and challenges.
With the spinal cord injury, there's a philosophy that's really, really important to get back into our body again.
Yeah.
So that's part of one of the things you do.
CHANDA HINTON was injured at such a young age, And some of the issues she had to confront were hard for her young self to understand.
I come from a family of hunters that truly, love to hunt and are very responsible humans with guns when they go hunting. After being in rehab, I came home, and of course my family, they all still hunted. And that was interesting for me to navigate as well, because I was like, wow, I'm sitting here in a wheelchair paralyzed from a gun, but yet how do I navigate that emotion that my family's still gonna pick up a gun and they're gonna go hunt?
Left on the sandalwood.
Now at 37, Chanda says the healing, forgiveness, and activism are a package deal, motivating her to keep moving forward. Chanda realized there was one giant step remaining in her healing journey.
And then we're here.
Chanda needed to see her childhood friend Trevor, the young man who fired the gun, leaving her paralyzed.
Hello. Good. How are you doing? It's good to see you. Good. Excited to see you.
Yeah.
It's kind of nervous, but yet good.
I know, but it was funny when Paul pulled up, he's like, is Trevor peeking through the window right there?
Oh, no, my son's always grew up messing with the blinds, so,
That's so cute.
You're lucky that we can they're even up.
So, Trevor, when Paul pops me up, if you pull from the front.
You ready?
Yep. 2, 3.
Hi.
That's my America.
Nice to meet you. It's so beautiful. You guys have a lovely home.
Well, thanks.
Is that one of your guys' wedding pictures right there?
Yeah. That was the one that was a present from a friend of mine.
Oh wow, did he make the wood on it?
Yes, we got it. You know, like I said, there's not a day goes by I don't think about what happened. It's only natural to look back and reflect upon it. It's just something that happened that you probably never, just something that changed your life forever. I'm really happy that you've taken what's happened and turned it really positive.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, but what you told me was there isn't a day that goes by that you don't think about it.
No. Well, I just think that's natural, though. I mean, it's just part of it.
And when you first contacted him, I was like, well, I think she's forgiven you, Trevor, but you need to forgive yourself. And he said he never will.
No, that's the way it is.
For me, I think it's all about healing. Do you know what I mean? So from the perspective of me, that it's like I understand that there are accidents, and I embrace that fully, and I have no negative feelings towards Trevor whatsoever, which is I'm so excited about. I just want to embrace him.
Went to North Platte, to the emergency room, and that was the last time I actually was in the same room as Chanda till today.
Even now, going back to that day is painful for Trevor.
I remember after it happened, you just knew something wasn't right.
In a moment, nearly 30 years ago, two young lives were profoundly changed forever.
It's probably, without a doubt, the darkest point in my life. I just made a bad mistake. I messed up.
Here, turn this way.
All right.
Watch this.
It's like the four-wheeler.
Watch. Get him. Yeah? Was that scary?
Nearly 3 decades have passed. Trevor still struggles to talk about the pain and mental anguish of what happened.
You know, you go through life and you make mistakes. You can fix them. You can fix it, like make it the way it was. You know, if you break a window, you can buy and get a new window. That's something I'll never be able to fix. And that's been the hardest for me, personally. Twos. There's a part of me, I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself. I think forgive, I don't know if, because, you know, she's gonna be in that wheelchair forever.
Nope. Just a little bump. Hi.
For Chanda, true forgiveness is a key ingredient in healing a lifetime of wounds.
So when I reached out to Trevor, I wanted him to know that I forgave him. I want you to know that I forgive you, because I can't also imagine what it's done to you.
There he is. Hi. Hi. Go get him. Oh, he's giving a kiss.
Once I had forgiven him, all those details and questions that I had weren't really relevant anymore, but there was one that was still relevant, and it was whether he thought about me. And so I just asked him, I said, you know, I know you haven't reached out to me and all those kinds of things, and so I just want to know, do you ever think about me and what occurred? He was just really quiet, and he just said that I think about you every day, and that was enough for me.
Eric, it's so great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Maybe we'll have to go skiing out in Winter Park. That's where I like to go.
Yeah.
I've been like 3 times my whole life.
Bye-bye.
It's good seeing you.
Good to see you. Absolutely. Thank you, Trevor.
Anytime. Can you give Puppy a hug?
Oh, yay.
Tom, Chanda, and others know firsthand that there is pain, hardship, consequences, and oftentimes sadness that comes from a new life, and that healing the past and moving forward is not simple. But life does go on. 20 years after Columbine, the healing continues.
In terms of the time and the resources and the capacity of like healing America regarding the conversation and the presence of guns, it's gonna take a lot of work. I think that we should have faith in who we are as humanity and hope. I don't want us to ever give up on hope, but I mean, there is so much damage that has been done.
Medicaid doesn't pay for physical therapies. I wish that they did, so I can go more often to heal more, because that's part of the process of the physical part of me healing.
Unfortunately, most insurance companies do not pay for health and wellness benefits. I try to remind myself that my insurance company doesn't currently provide me the opportunity to get a personal trainer and have that paid through insurance, because it is health and wellness. And so that's kind of the mindset.
We are seeing that other state Medicaid programs are absolutely picking up on the trend that there is a different way of healing for those with physical disabilities. I think for folks with disabilities, they need a healthier option. It feels amazing to know that the providers we have around us are being able to impact an individual's life, to let them live beyond always having to worry about the spinal cord injury and the things that come with it. And when they have a healthier option, they are able to heal on so many different layers because they're not constantly just trying to physically stay alive and above always being sick. If we can be a small piece of that, like that is so significant.